Hi, folks, and welcome back to Film Optimists, where we talk about all things film with a gratuitous amount of optimism. I am your co host, Seth Boyd.
I am Megan Tierney.
And by the time you lovely folks hear this, it will be the new year, 2024. And what better
Hmm
way to start 2024 than to think about 2023? So, we are doing our typical year end top films we saw in 2023 list. This is our top five from each of us. And reminder and information for folks who are listening first time, this is not exclusively films that came out in 2023. These are
That's right.
movies that we saw for the first time here, so we might be going all over the place. It might mean a little heavy 2023, as those are
Mhm.
going to be fresh in our mind. But top five for each of us, the movies that really stood out that we saw for the first time this year. And I just want to say, I thought this was a pretty great movie year, which is kind of surprising given the strikes definitely delayed a lot of movies. So, given that, we saw some pretty significant output.
I agree. This was definitely we did say that we will, let ourselves choose from other eras when we've done this previously, but that was kind of we were coming out of the COVID era and
Sure.
movie going was not necessarily a thing. I was really pleased, both my partner and I, that movie going was a thing again. I went to the theater probably. I was like trying to calculate it for the episode, probably I think like over 50 times, which is pretty
Wow.
crazy. Sorry. Totally
You're saying
overshot.
one five?
Maybe over 30 times.
Thirty.
But I
Okay,
mean
still, that's,
still,
that's significant. Yeah.
yeah.
Fantastic.
Love our local theater, get those
Yeah.
discount Tuesdays and
Mm-hmm.
it's just so enjoyable. I always am a fan of like actually going to the theater, so such a treat. And a lot of mine are from 2023. I only have one, I believe, that's not in
Okay.
2023. So yeah,
Well, great.
really, really happy, really excited to talk about it.
Yeah, while we're on that note, real quick, do you have the go-to like snack that you're getting, Megan, at your theater?
Oh, I have to get popcorn. It's
Okay.
like it's a need.
Good.
And I'm popcorn and icy person,
Ooh. Okay.
like
Nice. Nice.
always. And my lovely partner is so generous and will buy the snack bar out like for everything. But
Good man.
candy, literally
Yeah.
whatever we want. But I tend to stick to popcorn and icy, and I'm good to go.
Nice. Ever since I became aware, someone enlightened me with the magic of chemistry, where you combined
Oh,
peanut M and M's with popcorn. That is a
oh,
staple. So you just eat off the
wow,
top, and later you pour the whole box in, and you mix up as much as one can. But it's great, and you think you
wow.
get them all when the movie's over, and there's still one or two M and M's there. So recommend it.
Do they get a little melty?
Very slightly, depending on how hot the chocolate is. Like
Yeah,
they're not going to like spread, but now that you say that, I think that is. I think people do at home, so it's not a bad
yeah,
way to
that's what
go
I
with
heard.
home theater.
Kind of like a
Pop that shit
munch,
in your
like a
mouth.
moose
Yeah,
munch
exactly.
type
Like
thing
a
going on.
moose punch. Exactly. I also am a sucker for a horrible, shitty theater hot dog.
Really?
I
Yeah,
will if they have a hot dog, I'll probably open it, no matter how bad it is.
that's
So
funny.
I don't know what it is, but
Hmm.
I can't be conned that easily.
That's
Well,
been a couple dinners this year. Was a
yeah,
movie theater hot dog.
nice.
Yeah.
Well, Megan, do you want to start us off with your number five? And I think, as per usual, we're not going to necessarily do this in order, or maybe you have these actually ranked. My number one
Yes.
will be my number one, but other than
Yeah.
that, we'll kind of count down vaguely, right?
Sure. I do
Okay,
try to like semi rank them honestly, and then of course number one is number one.
cool.
I do try. So I'm kind of going in an order of keeping it in mind of like
Yeah,
top to bottom
sure.
kind of thing.
You more
So
orderly and put together, so it makes
that's
sense.
right. hmm sure, yeah. I like the competitiveness of it, I guess. It's kind of fun to,
It is
pit the
fun,
best against the best, but
right?
these are all, of course, top picks. Creme de la creme of 2023. I'm really, really excited to start off with Sofia Coppola's Priscilla, which
Oh, I
was
am so excited to hear you said that.
yeah, I was kind of you know, I will say also I have quite a few honorable mentions. I have quite a few like things that I'm going to mention after that would possibly sway my actual listing here, but
Sure.
this one made the list, definitely. It was just an enjoyable watch. So, I mean, it's kind of funny that we're in an era of Elvis again. I mean, and not to throw back to Elvis when this movie is literally about Priscilla, and that's kind of the whole point of it. But Elvis was a huge movie for me and my family. I believe it was 2022, so I'm sure, and I
Yeah,
think
it
I
was
talked
on
about
your list last when we did this episode. Yeah.
I'm sure I talked about, yes, in 2022, and it was a huge movie for me. We just love Elvis. My grandmother was a huge Elvis aficionado, that kind of thing. So, and I love that movie. I think it's fantastic. I think it was really exciting. Really favorite like Baz Luhrmann flick, and it was just really exciting to me. This one I've seen so many really great commentary channels talk about it and say
Mhm.
like aesthetically and just thematically, it it literally is the antithesis of that Baz Luhrmann's Elvis, in
Yeah.
such a beautifully done way. It was so it's just so fun to see like that change and have it executed so nicely. There's like a softness to it that is so it's just like delicious kind of. It was really really fun
Yeah.
to watch. I didn't know much. I didn't see much of Coppola's like previous work, to be honest, but I hear this is like her at her finest kind of, and from hearing that I'm interested to see more. I mean, every frame of this looks like a old photograph to me, so if like that's kind of your vibe, that
Yeah.
will be you'll enjoy this as well. And in terms of the story too, I mean, people criticize it like, oh, it was such a like bashing of Elvis, and that was certainly not the case for me. I thought it was also very like extremely realistic, and it felt very like
Um,
very intimate in that way also, to portray their I felt very like true of what could actually happen, and what
yeah.
potentially actually happened. So I thought of like a comparison was or a modern like possibly bad comparison would be a movie like that came out that was on Netflix called Blonde, that was regarding
Oh, yeah.
Marilyn Monroe, and I heard
Mm.
that it was more of a that one was more like of a smear campaign, very like atmospheric, but in a bad way, kind of regarding this lore, I guess. And this
Right.
one wasn't even grotesquely against Elvis in any way. I just thought it was very realistic, all from Priscilla's perspective, which was really interesting. So I just really enjoyed it, and just a lovely, lovely shot film.
Well, I'm so glad to hear that this made your list because I didn't know, like we talked about last year, Elvis was on your list, and Sofia Coppola has made some great movies. I'll be honest, I'm kind of limited in them, and it's like some of them just nothing wrong with the movie, but she just has not become a director. It's like I've got to watch her whole filmography. But I love Marie Antoinette, her film.
Yes,
It
yeah.
is such an interesting period piece that feels drastically more alive than most period pieces, while also being very respectful to what happened to
Yes.
these characters. And Kristen Dunst is among the most underrated actors of all time. She's fantastic, and she just doesn't get the credit she deserves. She's great in that.
That's right.
So I'm really glad to hear that this worked for you because that's what I kind of heard is after some kind of I don't say flops, but some maybe lesser than her maximum output films that
Hmm.
this is really like peak Sofia Coppola. And
Nice.
while there's quite a lot of obviously let's not dance the word nepotism with
Sure.
actors, it
Yeah.
is kind of cool to see. Like at best, it's a dynasty, and then it's it's multiple. Like right now, we have Jack Quaid. I like Jack Quaid. Or
Hmm.
you have Michael Douglas after Kurt Douglas. This can work. It can be fun, and you don't get that as often with directors. So it's kind of cool that we do have that with Sofia
Yeah.
Coppola. So I'm very excited to see that. Do you feel like the movie was in any way commenting directly on the Elvis movie? Or should it just be kind of seen as like should they be companion pieces,
Oh,
or how would you
that was the
guys
thing.
seen
Definitely
both?
not. Yeah, I feel like it's so much stood on its own, just
Yeah.
stylistically and storyline wise. Interestingly, a commentary on the Elvis movie was that Priscilla was in it, maybe like 10 minutes in that movie of
Mm,
that long
yeah.
ass Elvis movie.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
that's kind of, they said that that was a great like metaphor for her impact in Elvis's actual life. And to see it, actually in this one, I kind of thought it would be more Priscilla, but it is really a large part of their relationship too, more than I expected, but it certainly stands on its own as like its own
Good.
entity of a film. I just kind of, yeah, it does raise eyebrows of like that it came out the next year kind of thing. I think
Right.
that's a natural comparison, but it was certainly its own
Absolutely.
entity.
Things can just be in production independently of each other. And I
Hmm.
do think that's been some of the like, I don't even know if they're necessarily critic reviews, or some of them might be, or like user reviews, like, oh, it's just the feminist version of that. Like, no, this was probably in
Right.
production well before that.
Yes.
It takes a long time to make a movie and to get it out. So that's usually how that goes.
Yeah.
Um, well, great. Very glad to hear that. Because I remember when that Elvis movie was out, literally talking with a frequent guest of the podcast, Anne Boyd, my wife. She's
Yes.
like, yeah, I do want to see it, but I just would rather see a Priscilla movie. And then lo and behold, the Priscilla movie that's just called Priscilla
Oh, good.
comes out. So looking forward to seeing that.
I think Anne
And
will
watch
like
Elvis
it. Yes.
like that.
Hmm.
Great. Okay. Well, I'm going to start in with my number 5. And as always, stiff competition this year to narrow it down. I'm going to start with one that is not from this year. This is a film called Taipei Story from 1985. This is a Taiwanese movie from the director Edward Yang. And I had heard of Edward Yang several times. He's one of those kind of art house foreign directors that comes up as like one of the guys you tackle when you've done the things we've done, like Tarkovsky and Bergman and some of these other, like this
Hmm.
slow cinema, this thoughtful. There's not big action pieces. This thought provoking, just kind of people interacting type of cinema. And I was craving one of those movies. A lot of the other movies on my list this year are going to be pretty out there.
Hmm.
And this was a movie I'd actually just watched last week. And it's like, I'm going to get into this guy. Some of his movies are like 4 hours or 3 hours. And it's like, oh,
Hmm.
here's this movie, and it's on your Criterion collection, and it's introduced by Martin Scorsese, because the reason we have this movie in the West is the film foundation project that he has that introduces world cinema. He has a brief introduction of what was going on in Taiwan in the 80s, and it's this beautiful, strange story that just does not go the way you expect about a man and a woman in, at the time, modern day Taipei and Taiwan in the 80s, and
Hmm.
their dynamic is so unlike anything I've ever seen in a movie before. And it's very slow and thoughtful, but it also, I thought, it really understood economics. And I don't mean like cultural economics, but understood like financial planning for a family, for
Oh,
individuals, in a way that most movies don't.
yeah.
um, it begins with two people about to move into a new apartment. They do move into that new apartment, but you quickly get these things that they're counting on not working out the way they expected. And you have some very real conversations about money and what the next steps are, that felt very refreshing to me when we're so used to
Hmm.
the sitcom is like, there's no way this guy works at the coffee shop and affords that apartment in New York or something. And we're so
Yes.
used to that not being portrayed accurately, that this, and obviously I'm not an expert on what was going on in Taipei in the 80s, so maybe that's not as accurate as I think, but it was just such a thoughtful, beautiful movie that did not go the way I expected. And it was that thrill of, this is a new director that has like 6 other movies that I get to watch. They unfortunately died
Nice.
young,
Mm.
but very excited to dive into their filmography. And the lead male actor in this is named Hao Haisen. Apologies for mispronouncing that. Who is one of the other leading directors of this movement of the Taiwanese cinema revival that happened in the
Oh,
80s.
cool. Hmm.
And the lead actress is Sao Chang, who was a pop singer who ended up marrying the director for a while. And it's just, it's also very cool. Like, this is a really collaborative community of
Yes.
the other, like the lead actor is another director,
Uh-huh.
and it's such a cool, refreshing, truly beautiful movie that, I just loved. It was just felt like such a relaxing, meditative movie where like it maybe feels like very little is happening, but so much is happening in these small moments. And
Hmm.
I don't want to give too much away. Not that there's like huge spoilers in there, but it's just a dynamic between a man and woman that is unexpected and largely unexplained towards the end of the movie.
Hmm.
That's really fascinating to watch. So if you want some slow cinema that's not too slow, it's only 2 hours. Highly recommend
Ooh,
Taipei Story.
very nice. I think I remember the title possibly. But very nice. It sounds
It probably came up in some of our film classes. Yeah.
I'm sure. And to me, realistic dialogue is really
Mm-hmm.
difficult to achieve. So that's a tenement to like writing always to me is I'm like, I don't know how it's always a quite a dance you have to do, or like it's really an art. So to hear to hear that it's done well is always high praise from me, basically.
Absolutely. And that you'd
Hmm.
appreciate this. It's a beautiful, brightly lit Asian city at night. A lot of those
Yeah.
scenes and just incredible architecture. A lot of this has that like I want to hang at that bar.
Yes.
That was fun.
Yeah. Oh,
Some
nice.
people having a beer playing darts was like that looks like a blast. I want to hang out with them.
Right. That's a fun part of cinema too, is just, want
Absolutely.
I want to be
Yeah.
there, a kind of
Hmm.
mentality, which is
Yeah.
nice. Well, my number four pick actually relates pretty hardcore, is what I'm
Sure.
hearing, to very slow cinema. So this is going to be like my most indie pick, certainly of this year, that I had talked about on the podcast previous, I think in our last episode, because this was
Oh,
a
great.
fairly recent watch for me. This was the movie Fremont, which is
Yeah.
I smile because this is literally Fremont is my hometown, and it's shot in Fremont, California. The film is by Babak Jalali, who had done a couple of other. They have a bit of a film, discography themselves, but this is slow cinema and its finest, shot in beautiful black and white, solely filmed in Fremont, and a bit in SF. They had, or either SF or Oakland, because they're filming. I think it's San Francisco, because the story is that the girl, this young Afghan woman, who has moved to Fremont, California, which historically and traditionally it's true that Fremont has the biggest Afghani population, like outside of Afghanistan.
I didn't realize
That's
that.
Yeah, and we grew up knowing that, and being a part of that and seeing that, which is really cool. The main actress, Anita Wali Zada, I hope I'm pronouncing her name correctly too, but like you mentioned, Seth, her story is similar to the story that's happening in the movie. So she was like an Afghan refugee. She moved to
Yeah.
maybe not Fremont, but I think the Bay Area, like specifically, and she did a cold call casting because she like related to, she was like, this is my like life. So I just had a special screening, like with this one, I watched a screening at my Fremont local library with my mom, which I mentioned, and it was my first screening in a long time, so it was just a lot of like fun things going on, to see places in Fremont that like literal buildings that I've just seen all my life, was so fun. And there's actually a big name in it, Jeremy Allen White, that I was really surprised, actually pretty shocked to see Boots Riley was in it, so we got a couple names and faces to look out for, but the main girl is incredible, really, great performance, and very dry, but also there's a sweetness to it, and it was just so much fun, and it's getting good buzz, so I'm
Yeah.
excited about it, and I hope people can just embrace Fremont, both the movie and the kind of the sentiment around it as well. They explain it well in the film, but they're kind of homaging this area too, which is really nice.
That's very cool. I'm so excited to see that. And I did not really
Yes.
go to Fremont much until hanging out with you there. it's
Uh-huh.
a
I
it's a
know.
very fascinating historically town too.
Hmm.
It's a podcast, but it's a very interesting town. Charlie Chaplin tried to set up an alternative to Hollywood there.
That's right.
Um,
Hmm. Good
yeah.
old Niles.
So there's a big
Niles.
sign that says Fremont, kind of like it says Miles, right?
Yeah,
Is that what
Niles
it
with the
was?
N. Hmm.
Exactly. Instead of like made modeled after the Hollywood sign. So
It literally could have been
yeah,
Hollywood. Thank God it's not. And I love Niles. Niles is my
yeah,
like place. It's so much fun.
it's a great spot. Well, very cool. Excellent pick. Um, okay, well, I'm going to do my first one that is from this year.
Yes.
Returning king on this podcast, Ari Aster's latest film, Beau is Afraid,
Oh yes.
and a very divisive movie.
Mm.
I've never seen a movie where I so clearly understood why this is not going to work for a lot of people.
Mm.
um, and I remember, so I had a great experience of seeing this in the theater with Anne, another friend, and I want to say there was maybe like 6 other people in the theater. And this is a very, very, to the 3 of us who saw it, funny movie. It's also a
Hmm.
very frightening movie, but my memory is us laughing through most of the movie while hearing absolutely no reaction from the rest of this very small theater.
Hmm.
So definitely a in a significant box office disappointment, unfortunately.
Hmm.
Although I think the release of it was very odd because there's indie theaters all over Milwaukee, and it wasn't playing at those. It was playing at like the multiplexes in the suburbs. Like I think it would have
Yeah.
done a lot better if it played at the smaller
Hmm.
local theaters. So I don't know what that plan was about, but this
Sure.
is also it's for people who are kind of more getting into movie. They hear Ari Aster has a new movie. The trailer is going to say from the director of Midsummer and Hereditary, they want a straight horror movie. This is not a straight horror movie. It is also not
Hmm.
a straight comedy. It's not a horror comedy like an Edgar Wright movie. It is
Hmm.
truly horrifying. It's like every other Ari Aster movie. I had nightmares, but also it was frankly hilarious. The brief overview is that a kind of man-child Arrested Development guy, played by Joaquin Phoenix, who's Bo,
Yes.
who has a whole lot of problems that seem to stem from having still way too close a relationship with his mother, way too
Hmm.
dependent, too scared of hurting her, is just trying to get home to visit her. That is the entire plot. It takes him quite a way to get there. And among my favorite, just kind of overall gags in it, like the first maybe hour of this movie takes place in a city that is not a real city, but it is basically what every Republican who comes on Fox News describes every major city as,
Mm.
including Milwaukee. It is, as the former president called it, shithole city. It is this horrifying, insane hellscape where there's a naked man called Stabby McStabman running around killing people.
Oh my
There's
God.
insane crimes happening all the time. But it is such a paranoid movie. This is such a
Hmm.
extreme anxiety of our character that's on display here, and obviously there's a lot going on here with his dynamic with his mother, but it's, and frankly that should be read into, and I know a lot of people doing a lot better off if they didn't talk to their mothers often as they did, or didn't have this still need to impress them like a 6-year old. Not knocking mothers in general, but there is definitely that dynamic to it. But there's a lot more going on here in this movie. It's visually stunning, and
Hmm.
there's some incredible surreal animation sequences that he's kind of
Mm.
interacting with.
Nice.
It's a stunning movie. It's a hilarious movie. You have great cast with Richard Kind is
Hmm.
fantastic in it, and Nathan Lane. Nathan Lane, who stars in it, referred to this as being the Jewish Everything Everywhere All at Once, which is a pretty
Oh.
accurate statement in terms of crazy, cathartic,
Uh-huh.
funny, really just out there. But it was just so fun seeing Ari Aster make something this outlandish. Not that his other
Yes.
movies haven't been extreme, but having, and he's been very open about this, the movie I love the most that I've made.
Oh,
And
nice.
I don't think he would call his other movies not personal because family trauma is a deep part of his
Hmm.
whole filmography. But just seeing him really just go this crazy with a certain picture was fantastic. I loved it. Absolutely not for everyone.
Wow.
And truly disturbing,
Nice.
but very fun. The opening scene is a character being born, and
Hmm.
it's among the most disturbing things I've seen. I loved it. I recommend it to people who've liked maybe other qualified recommendations I've given on this podcast,
Sure.
but certainly is not for everyone. I think there's going to be a lot of people who just be like, I can't believe this director thinks that about his mother. I don't think Ari Aster does, but
It's all
by many
metaphorical.
counts, he gets on with her. It's metaphorical,
Would
promises
you
for
say
everyone.
it's his soiree into satirical, like satirical comedy?
Yeah, I think there's definitely some because like, and I don't want to get too bogged down with this, but there's also quite a lot of it's kind of hard to address this without addressing the ending, but there's a lot that has been written about Ari Aster talking to his audience.
Mm,
And
okay.
even that is not a middle finger to his audience, but it is an interesting
Hmm.
engagement with it. You know, this is not,
Interesting.
I think the bottom line is a lot of people who didn't like it thought it was pretentious, and I just didn't. I found it very fun.
Uh-huh.
And Theory, surprisingly, it's like some of the filmmakers who love John Waters, makes sense that he would like it, but Martin
Yes.
Scorsese loved this
Hmm.
and did a Q&A with Ari Aster, and like what a great
I think
win
I
if you're
remember
Ari
that.
Aster. He was a bomb, but also Ari, but Martin Scorsese wants to be filmed on stage doing a Q&A and tell you how
Yeah,
much he
yeah.
loved your movie.
Oh,
So
nice.
um, he's also mentioned that he's kind of, Ari Aster that has mentioned, disappointed about the things that have not been discovered about the movie yet,
Hmm.
and that there's characters who are in maybe nearly every scene and people
Yeah.
haven't really unpacked what that means yet. So like I frankly don't know when I'm going to watch this again, even though I think it's now available for streaming,
Mhm.
because it was a challenging watch. But I think it's a rewarding one, and I think it'll be a very rewarding rewatch.
Oh
But
man.
also, I think the funniest movie I saw this year.
I really regret not watching this one in theaters too. You're
It's
you're
on, I
really
think,
selling it for.
Peacock or Prime now. Sorry,
Okay, nice. No,
I
you're
think I
you're
think I
selling
just
it.
doesn't get out of the theater. I think I called you.
I think so. Well, I
Yeah.
mean, it's on my watch list for sure. I mean, I was gonna say like Ari Aster is gonna be for me a director that
Oh,
I will try to now watch like what he does,
yeah.
and um it's so interesting to see a departure of what has already been done before. And
Mhm.
I knew that that was this movie for him, so maybe
Mhm.
I was like a little not gung ho in that regard, but to hear that it was successful
Sure.
is really exciting. So just happy to see it.
I think it's also Joaquin Phoenix is very interesting in this, and like in general, very much like Joaquin
Yeah.
Phoenix. I understand some people's problems with him. He makes very interesting choices, and it's kind of hard not to read into like there's a while the Joker I think is a in general good movie that has a lot of merits. I have problems with it, and there
Uh-huh.
definitely was a type of guy who liked the Joker way too much and filmed himself dancing on that stair
Yes.
in New York. And I thought this is such an
Very
interesting like
much
no one
loved
is
the
gonna
violence. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, exactly. And no one is
Mhm.
gonna film themselves or is gonna post to Tinder them wearing the Beau is Afraid pajamas. No one is gonna try and look like this absolute
Mhm.
loser um, in this
Yes.
movie. No one's gonna go for that. So it's kind of hard to not read into that being an intentional choice from Walking Phoenix, which I very much appreciate.
Nice.
But it's been announced whatever the next Ari Aster movie is, Joaquin Phoenix will be in it as will Emma Stone. So
Oh wow. Oh,
um,
wow.
great news across the board.
Goodness. Yeah. I mean, I'm gonna watch whatever he does basically. So
Yeah,
I will put Beau is Not Afraid on my watch list.
we're probably going to cover every movie he does eventually too.
I think so. It'll just have to happen. We've basically done a
But
little synopsis already. I mean, we've
we're a
done
third of the way.
Hereditary. Uh-huh. Yeah, yeah.
That's dream.
So we have to
Yeah,
stay tuned for that, folks.
exactly.
We'll be doing
Yeah.
it. But great. We're Ari Aster fans, so that's really
Yes.
exciting. Well, my next pick is my only departure from non-20 movies that came out this year, non-2023 movies. And I had I just give myself away too much. I talked about this with Seth in my excitement about it, that this was the first year that I watched Young Frankenstein for the first time for my spooky season.
Yeah.
Mel Brooks's Young Frankenstein from 1974 with the incredible, vivacious Gene Wilder and Mel Brooks in it as well. Perfect movie for
Yeah.
me. I can't believe I hadn't seen it before. I really just love the homage. It's the homage is like maybe the best I've ever seen of like old Hollywood-esque movie that
Yeah.
I mean it literally could be filmed in the 30s, which is so much fun. And um I think for me it's writing that is inspiring to me. It's a comedy that is inspiring to me too, to be like witty and to be um that like careful, I guess, with the word choices and with the characters, and have
Yeah.
it be kind of slapsticky, but also just a lot of fun, and like have it live on its own too was just so much fun. It put like Gene Wilder back into my life, kind of, besides Willy Wonka, basically.
Right.
And I remembered like or it was my favorite performance of his that I've seen. So I just really, really enjoyed the movie, and I think it's inspiring to me in terms of like what I potentially want to do
Yeah.
if I were to make films, and if I were to write, definitely, especially about the writing. And it's just so
Yeah.
like vaudevillian is
Mm.
the feeling that I got, and that's my bread and butter. I just love that kind of feel. So much fun. I'm happy it came into my life finally.
It's very funny because I feel like that's been kind of maybe a basis of our friendship has been an appreciation of vaudeville, but we haven't talked about it. you know,
No,
an
we're just
appreciation of that
like
level of humor.
we just
I think
kind
you
of
just kind of
embody
connect
it.
with people who grew up with that. Exactly.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. We're
Because
just
it's
vaudeville
a
adjacent.
strange, exactly, maybe strange concept to someone who doesn't know what it is, has not seen like a Marx Brothers movie or something, but like
Yeah.
once you kind of play with it, you really get it. And I know we talked about our Ferris Bueller movie. One of the things that's so great about that is it is truly a film that is a comedy. It's not
That's right.
just not going to name names this time. It's not just what feels like improv sketch being filmed. Like
Hmm.
all the aspects of film are being used there. Like the recurring joke of a person's name is said and the horses neigh and the lightning strikes. And just like,
Yes.
audio is such a component of it. Like the visual look of it is such a part of the joke.
Yep.
But also, it's just great that the character is the descendant of Frankenstein who intentionally pronounces it wrong because he doesn't want to be associated with Frankenstein, you know?
Hmm.
So you have a genuine, interesting character who has a
That's right.
growth they have to go through, like a whole hero's journey. Like everything is firing on all cylinders.
That's right.
And it treats the film as respectful as any other film, and it's just a comedy. I think that's why it works so well.
Yes. Yes.
It's like, why wouldn't you do it
Agree.
good? you know?
Yeah.
So
Agree with
great,
all of
great
that.
pick, and I'm glad you reviewed that.
Yep.
Okay. Folks, things are about to get much stranger
Oh.
here. And the first of two shouts out to former, I shouldn't say former because we'll come back on, but the previous guest, Claudia Cortez,
Oh.
for taking me to this movie, The Holy Mountain from Alejandro Jodorowsky, a Chilean Mexican production, a surreal art house movie. This is a movie I have been aware of for a long time. I have rented this movie from the library and check it out on watching because I know how crazy it is, and I didn't think I could handle it. Then I get the text that it's playing at a local theater, so I can shout out for local theaters.
How
But
exciting.
yeah, this is a surreal, psychedelic, trippy movie, and I think I just kind of, among the reasons I never really gave it the full try was I just kind of wrote it off as potentially the worst case scenario is it's a gross, strange movie for the sake of being gross and strange. But I thought this was actually a very beautiful movie that had a lot to say, and it was referencing some real world recent events, including massacres. It's
Mhm.
very heavily about religion. And this is a surreal kind of tableau of a movie. There is an actual plot that kicks in pretty late into it. It ultimately follows a thief who climbs up a tower and finds this alchemist who's played by the director and becomes aware that there's a group that has been gathered to go and find the holy mountain that so many religions have been based on. The alchemist has
Oh,
found one. It's
yes.
going to be a pilgrimage. We're going to go there. It's going to be the spiritual journey. But there's heavy spiritual motifs throughout it, often being inverted in an interesting way. Like there's an interesting point earlier in the movie where this main initial character, who's only identified as a thief, has been aware that there's been like a local factory has been making casts of him to sell
Mm.
as Christ figures, and there's just an incredible visual sequence of him destroying this factory of
Oh,
figures that are
nice.
him, but also Jesus, and just this kind of interesting commentary that's impossible to not bring up. Jesus overturning the tables
That's right.
of the markets at the temple, you know,
You
and
know, the
the
Bible doesn't always
commercialization
hit,
of
but I love
religion.
that story. Sorry,
That's a good
just
one, right? It's a
right?
good one,
It's a
absolutely.
great one.
In general, I prefer the Old Testament, the Torah, but there's some good stuff.
I
The guy
know.
had some good ideas, and that was the best one of
Yeah, yeah.
them.
That's I just like that he's so
Blessed
pissed
in the
off
Meek is
and
a good one, and
yeah.
yeah, exactly.
Punk rock
No,
Jesus,
absolutely,
very
so
much so.
he, working class hero and
Mhm.
Palestinian.
Mhm.
So you have
True,
some
true.
incredible imagery like this that's being referenced. It's an incredible, strange score. It is among the most striking things um, that I've ever seen, and it genuinely was beautiful. And I think it has maybe the best endings of any movie I've seen
Oh my
in a
gosh.
long time. And oddly, I think we might need to do an episode of this. There's been some very strange, unexpected comparisons to Barbie. With like, I think they actually were aware of certain shots that they were pulling from for this
Oh,
movie.
for
Someone
Barbie,
did
you
kind of
mean?
side by side. Yeah, for the Barbie movie, I think
I see.
someone has done like shot comparisons to scenes in The Holy Mountain and in Barbie
Hmm.
that are
Wow.
kind of hard to ignore. But
Oh man.
yeah, a beautiful strange. I think when it was originally came out, it might have been NC-17. There's a lot of nudity in it.
Uh-huh.
There's a lot of violence, but I generally didn't find it upsetting. I
Hmm.
found it just beautiful and captivating in a way that I did not expect, and I'm so glad I got to see it on a big screen. It was one of my favorite experiences,
Oh, that's
um,
nice.
and truly fascinating things that are respectful of the idea of religion in many ways, but have some appropriate critiques of a lot of religion that I thought was it didn't take a cheap shot, and it also didn't just
Yes.
diminish the whole concept.
Hmm.
So I thought it was very beautiful.
Oh, shout out to Claudio for these really interesting like picks, and that historical aspect was so fascinating in his episode
Yeah.
that he kind of broke down. And so we have an episode with him, with Claudio, talking about Suspiria, so go check that out if you want to hear his very
Hmm.
interesting take. But that sounds like such a good
Yes.
one. What a gem. What a gem of a
He has
movie, but
offered to come back
also
on to watch Holy Mountain, so I think we should
oh
do
yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah, okay.
We
Very
just gotta
down.
find a copy of it for you because I don't know how hard
Definitely.
easy this movie is to find. So
Well, very down. I'll
yeah,
try to find some weird local theater and
there you go.
break down the
Yeah.
doors or something. That'll be fun.
Yes, it was great watching this added historical context.
Very good. Very good. We're coming up the ladder here for me too. So,
We are.
yeah, we're nearing the end. This is a this is a I may have watched this yesterday or the day before. My days are a little
Okay.
and bad, but I talked to Seth about it, that I'm so glad that I kind of like made space for it. I was waiting to watch Saltburn, uh,
Oh yeah.
directed by Emerald Fennell, starring
Mhm.
Barry Keegan, I believe, and then Jacob Elordi is also in this film. I went
Was
in.
Jacob already Elvis in the Priscilla
He
movie?
wasn't Elvis. He played Elvis. He was in Priscilla.
Okay.
Hmm.
Sorry. Apologies. Yeah.
Yeah, and quickly on that, I thought he did great. People were just weird about it. I thought he did fine. He did really good.
If you're
He's
doing
kind of like
Elvis a year after
interesting.
Guy spent like so much time studying to do Elvis, I think that's an
Yeah,
unfair comparison.
I know.
Like Austin Butler did, but
Hmm.
yeah.
He has kind of like, I mean, he's very like good looking, so I think it's hard to. I think he has that kind of. It's almost a stick on him because he may
Sure.
get typecast potentially.
Right.
I think that he's very interesting. He was great in this. He's choosing. I don't know if he's choosing them, but or his agent or whatever. But these roles are really fascinating that he's taking. They're kind of
Hmm.
dark, and this movie is, of course, A24. It's for me was like A24's best of the best in terms of cinematography, in terms of storyline, being a little bit dark, but really visually stunning. I mean, that's kind of just what captivates you from the beginning. The actors really are so fun to watch. Jacob Lord is great, like I said, but the main guy, Barry, he's kind of our main character is Barry Keegan. That actor, he did amazing. Like he was really fascinating
He
to
was
watch.
fantastic in the Banshees of Inisherin.
Yes, and I
He's
didn't
he's
see
great.
that one either. Okay, yeah. I mean, I think he's kind of this will propel him a little farther. He was really. I mean, literally all the cast is
I think you're right.
very fun. Very like it's unhinged energy
Yeah.
is the best way I can say it. But as
You
beautiful
love to
as
see it.
yes, as beautiful as it reminded me of watching Call Me by Your Name for the first time, like that kind of beauty.
Mm,
But the storyline
yeah.
is very dark. Well, I should say like it's kind of a thriller that becomes unhinged as you go along. I loved it. I mean, it felt the way that it created atmosphere was really impressive to me. And again, it reminded me
Okay.
of like that. It was the antithesis of Call Me by Your Name's, that beautiful, like almost angelic atmosphere. This one was like dark, and
Right. Right.
it looked like dark wood and moss, and
Mm,
um, a lot of classism going on, which is incredible. And majority of it is shot in this insane like I don't know, the 17th century mansion or castle in England. So I think seeing
no.
that level of like grandiose architecture has been really a treat also. And so in
Mm,
terms of if you're into like that level of architecture, that level of like just high art, I think it's literally a visual treat. It's like going to a museum basically. So
that's fantastic.
that alone was worth the
Yeah.
watch. But yeah, I mean it was an A24 firing on all cylinders of like the best of what I
Yes.
want an A24 movie to be basically.
On that note, I so get what you're saying about like the architecture.
Uh-huh.
This movie is not making my list, but let me pull this up real quick.
Yes.
A movie that I very much enjoyed watching this year that was rather long was I finally watched Kenneth Branagh's version of Hamlet.
Oh,
That is like uncut. It is every single scene, every line of dialogue that is in there. Like typically when you adapt Hamlet, you adapt it because it's in two different folios, but he
Yes.
just had absolutely everything in there. And so it's 4 hours long. But this movie has lavish, gorgeous costumes and is shot at this incredible castle. And it cost
Hmm.
$18 million to make.
Oh my
And
goodness.
it's such a, the fact that it's under $100 million is very surprising to watch as a modern audience for this 4 hour epic
Yes.
that's shot on location with great
Right.
costumes. Um, it's not a flawless movie. Again, you shouldn't do all of Hamlet. He's a very interesting one. But just
Hmm.
what you were saying about the architecture, it's such a, it's. I'm sorry if I'm a sucker, but I love seeing incredible architecture on the big screen. It's fun.
I know.
It's one of the things
Hmm.
we've been good at for a long time, and it's always engaging. You know,
Yeah.
honestly, I think that's where there's Citizen Kane is great. Like the
Yes.
Xanadu's insane place. So
Yes. Actually, that's funny you mention it because so I this is anecdotally as well, but I recently went to for fun to Hearst Castle like with my family. That's a
oh
attraction
yeah.
here in
Mhm.
California in like mid kind of in the middle of California-ish near San Luis Obispo. And
Mhm.
we learned that Citizen Kane is kind of the story of the owner of that mansion. My dad
First.
mentioned it to me
Yeah.
after the fact. Yeah,
Mhm.
it's Hearst Castle. The castle's incredible. It's part of California Parks now. But we
Oh,
got to
cool.
tour it and just see that. I mean, that was like a highlight of the year for me. It seeing the architecture was just
Yeah.
insane. But I did think like, God, I wish it was like something like this could be on film, and there's just no way. Like it's just it's too it's I mean, one, it's California Park, so it'll be a lot of
Right.
money to do it no matter what. They just wouldn't do it, obviously. But getting some kind of treat like that on film is so fun, and getting
Yeah.
to see it in person was just incredible.
I need to do that eventually. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's something kicking myself for not doing before moving from California. Designed by Julie Morgan. Um,
Yeah.
a great one. Okay, folks, we are getting down to it. My number two pick
Hmm.
is Theorema, or Thurium in English, from 1968 Italian film by Pier Paolo Pasolini. And
Okay.
this movie was not particularly suggested by Claudio, again, who was just mentioned, but he did suggest I get into Pasolini's works finally, something I was
Hmm.
putting off. Another one of those guys one finally dives into if they, for instance, host a film podcast. So, and I was so glad
Yes.
that I did. I've loved 1960s Italy has been among my favorite wells to return to for film. Italy in general, but this was such a really interesting, fascinating time. Surrealism is really at its peak here, coming out and affecting other things. And Pier Paolo Pasolini was a fascinating figure. He was openly gay, he was very openly Marxist, and he was ultimately murdered in a case that is still
Wow.
unsolved. Fairly young, could have had a much longer career. He also, several of his films were based off of novels he wrote,
Hmm.
including this one. And this is a very interesting, kind of like my understanding of Saltburn, an interesting Eat the Rich movie.
Mm.
Um, and that there was a lot of
Yes.
these coming out in the 60s in France and Italy, especially other countries, I'm sure, that were these scathing takes on the elite. And this is just so much more scathing than like Antonioni movies or even Godard movies that were happening. Because the main plot here is that there is a wealthy family who unexpectedly gets a notice that a person is visiting. This person remains unnamed. He's played by Terrence Stamp, who's absolutely stunning in this movie. And he ultimately ends up sleeping with everyone in the family. And it's not just a sexual thing. They are obsessed with him and they have a profound connection with him. He has spiritually healed them. And everyone is of age. There's two kids who are older teenagers, the maid, both parents. Like the dad is kind of healed after engaging with them, and he engages with
Mm.
all of them in a different way, but he has this profound connection with them and leaves just as unexpectedly, and they are
Hmm.
absolutely devastated. And it's a really interesting movie that it's not just like this horny thing. It just highlights that these people kind of were going through the motions, being wealthy, didn't really have much going on that they were interested in,
Hmm.
then had this thing they're attached to, and that are absolutely devastated when it's gone and have no
Hmm.
idea how to continue to go on with their lives and just all of them in their own ways slowly go insane.
Wow.
And Marxism comes up several times in the movie directly. It's a very strange one. Like I said, it is a sexual movie, but it is not gratuitous, in my opinion. It is perfect casting that if you're going to have someone be the most beautiful being on the planet, it's young Terrence Stamp, who looks stunning in this movie. If you know what Terrence Stamp sounds like, this movie is a little odd because he's dubbed by an Italian actor. So earlier in his career, but so that can be throwing you off. But it was just a really fascinating, stunning, surreal movie that I thought had a lot to say. Said it pretty efficiently. I think there's less than 1,000 words of dialogue in the whole script, but it's still beautiful, and it's not that long. I think it's about an hour 30, maybe an hour 40.
Yeah.
But also, much like with the Taipei story, it just opened my door. Like, okay, I like this guy. I'm going to watch more of these. And I've seen 3 or 4 other movies, and I've loved them.
Nice.
And there's more movies to get. But that to me is just such an exciting thing because I usually do go by the director's filmography of like, I like this. I want more of it.
Yep.
Great. There's more of it. And that's a very rewarding thing as a viewer.
Wow.
So
right away, I think there is parallels going on to Saltburn.
Right? Because I know of it, but I've not seen it. But I often spoil movies for myself.
Sure. Yeah, without giving too much away. Similar things going on, and funnily that it is about class things going on. It is a Eat the Rich kind of movie too, but oh, interesting. That's very interesting.
Fascinating movie.
I know, it's so nice to now, if you like something, there's more to come of it or from a director. Right. So that's always nice. Okay, folks, I was talking with Seth that I have a hefty list of honorable mentions this year. I think all of them are, besides one, all of them are from 2023. Like I said, I think I watched roughly 35 movies like in the actual theater this year, which was a treat. And these are kind of what came on the list but didn't make the top 5. So the first one is Renfield. I'll mention Next Goal Wins by Taika Waititi. Talk to Me was a huge actually a huge one. That one I almost made on the list because I'm a huge horror fan, and that movie was like frightening to me and was really exciting. And Oppenheimer is on my honorable mentions list. Incredible sound design, but yeah. Oh, and then also I wanted to mention Prey, which is a 2022 movie. It's a Predator movie.
That was good.
That was really good. Incredible action, but also like a really wonderful like woman lead. That a really great storyline. Indigenous tribe.
You can watch it in the Native American language.
Yes.
I'm blanking on which one, but like
I know.
Yeah.
And they had accurate language, like native language. It was that was really nice. Who knew? And then also I wanted to mention that so a couple of 2 movies that are on my watch list still that potentially could have swayed my list that we'll see. Maybe I'll do a little I'll update you guys, but it's The Holdovers and also Killers of the Flower Moon. I have not seen both of those yet, but I do think I think especially The Holdovers, I hear that I've heard it described as literally a warm hug of a movie, and I think that that's kind of like up my alley. So I think that would have potentially swayed the list a little bit. So
it's on streaming tomorrow for us.
Dang it!
Undesignated time, so we can know. I almost said we should move it because
that's right. But I was trying to remember when it came on streaming, but yes. So. We'll talk about it or something. But yes, after that long spiel, this is gonna be my top. And I think it'll be a lot of people's tops, honestly, of 2023, because my top was Barbie. Greta Gerwig's Barbie. Good. This movie it was just so special to me, and I know that it was special for a lot of people, but it was just special. And I think that Greta Gerwig is special to me. I'm really excited it's on like Max now streaming, and there's a director's commentary of Barbie. I'm gonna watch that. It was everything that like I was excited to see in the trailers, but it was also very surprising to me. It was such a fun theater watch, very, very engaging, but it was also very emotional for me. I think it was emotional to see femininity, like almost maybe like flamboyant femininity like that I had not seen in, I don't think ever. I mean, honestly, maybe in like old-timey, like it was different than old-timey glamour movies
Yeah.
because that's a little bit of such a male gaze going on. To see something so aggressively not in the male gaze was really like an emotional experience for me. It caught me. Like I remember tearing up in the theater a couple of times, and not necessarily even like the more emotional parts of the movie. It was just little subtleties about critiques on feminism that were kind of going on that were very entertaining, but just kind of get to you. So that it was so bold in that way was just, I almost couldn't believe it, kind of like I can't believe it got made. In other words, I couldn't believe that the
Yeah.
Barbie movie of like, a humongous budget became what it was. So I think it's like
Right.
it felt very triumphant in that regard. And yeah, I think that Greta Gerwig is, she's another one. Like I'm just gonna watch whatever she has to put out, and what a triumph for her. And it's not. I also agree. Like it's not perfect, and it is kind of like dialogue heavy almost, and it's kind of above the head humor that I don't
Mhm.
think is accessible for everyone. I don't think it's accessible for like for kids, for instance, for like young children, for instance.
Yeah.
But I don't mind that they're seeing it also, so I go back and forth with it. I don't think it's like absolutely pristine, but
Right.
it was certainly, I just felt so seen. And I wasn't a huge Barbie girl, growing up, but I was a huge fan of this movie, in other words. So
I'm
yeah, it was just so exciting.
I'm so glad to hear that's your number one, because yeah, what a great movie. When
Yes,
unexpectedly, I just say unexpectedly because of the cast and crew, like Greta Gerwig, Margot
that's right.
Robbie. It's gonna be great, but you just hear there's a Barbie movie, like, well, how the hell is that gonna be good?
I know.
Um, and I do have to say, I feel like so many of the jokes of when the Kens are trying to be alpha male, of the things they want to talk about, are so on the fucking nose. Like the
Yes.
Godfather movies, the
Yep.
band Pavement, and why you should be putting things into a CDC account. These are very specific things that I have definitely said at a party
Yeah,
as a um, uh, cis male.
that's funny.
So it's like,
Hmm.
yeah, I felt very seen by the jokes. Like, yeah, I've ranted
Yeah.
about that to a person who doesn't want to listen. So I thought those
Oh,
jokes were great, and a very appropriate light takedown, because it's by
yes.
no means mean spirited. I do make a great point too, though, of like the over the head humor, because it kind of reminded me of like Princess Bride is
Uh-huh.
a kind of completely different movie from when you were a kid to when you were maybe even like a teenager. Like I remember
True.
just being like 4 and watching it, just thinking purely adventure movie, and then
Hmm.
realizing how funny it was much later.
Yes.
And I
Yeah,
think
yeah.
there's probably a pretty significant gap of like 5 or more years of not watching and being like, oh, this movie's hilarious. And I still rewatch it often, but like the
Hmm.
jokes did not land with me as a 5-year-old. It was
Oh
just
yeah.
adventure story. So yeah, I think it's gonna have some staying power for sure. I'm still kind of scared as to what the upcoming Mattel movies that have been threatened will be that aren't Barbie
Right.
2. It's like
Right.
I can't keep track of what all they own, but like we don't need like a Hot Wheels movie or something like that. So
I think
there's
that
been
they
GI Joe
have,
movies that are not good.
for sure. I think that they have like nixed Barbie
Okay,
2.
good.
Like I think it's not up for sequel grabs, which I'm happy about. From what
Yeah,
I've heard. So
yeah,
and then like also Greta has just quite a knowledge of film herself. Like I think she's it's a little bit like egregious, but she says like this film was influenced by like literally 30 other like Hollywood classics kind of thing. And you can kind of,
yeah.
I mean, I don't doubt that. Is you can see it like in the movie. It's just
Mm.
it's just like quite a lot. And I think I love the ridiculous of it all because it's literally a Barbie movie. but
Right.
but those influences are there. So I'm not denying it.
Absolutely.
It's just kind of,
I mean,
it's
the
all
Kubrick
funny.
references are very strong,
That's right.
and what a great pick and great runner-ups. I'll do my kind of honorable mentions as well.
Yes.
The Boy and the Heron, the new Miyazaki movie, was absolutely gorgeous. Loved it.
So good.
Just the type I was tight this year, but it was so great to see him back. I will say there was one of my favorite moments in the movies this year, though, was when the credits revealed of the cast because I saw the English dubbed.
Oh,
Everyone, including myself and were shocked to find out that the Heron was voiced by Robert Pattinson
oh, no
because
way.
we knew he was in this movie and he does almost like a Tom Waits gravelly thing
Hmm.
that I did not know was a sound he can make. And I spent a good portion of the movie trying to guess who he was, and I assumed he was the kid just doing kind of a high pitched voice. But great English voice cast. Of course, the Japanese voice cast is great, but in general, a fascinating movie. But it was just you could hear like everyone was like, "Oh," when they saw that he was a Heron.
Good for him.
Unexpectedly great movie. Yeah, I thought it was great.
Yeah, nice.
Asteroid City, I really liked.
Hmm.
I liked it more than French Dispatch. I don't think there's necessarily anything wrong with French Dispatch. This just connected with me much deeper. Godzilla minus one, great
Hmm.
Japanese Godzilla movie, and Oppenheimer and Barbie. I feel like Oppenheimer's been talked about enough. It's very good in a lot of ways. I'm going to note on a couple of things that are lacking when I give my number one pick, but I do have to say it was so great seeing Cillian Murphy in a lead role. It was so great
Hmm.
seeing Robert Downey Jr. in not a Marvel movie. He was fantastic. Great acting all around, great sound design, like you mentioned. But some other major movies came out that were equally long or longer that I think really appropriately brought into the question of are some movies too long? And I think Oppenheimer is too long. I think especially when compared to my top pick, Killers of the Flower Moon, the Martin
Yes.
Scorsese movie.
Hmm.
And a person has said a phrase that I can't get out of my head, which is that Christopher Nolan cannot do with 3 hours that Martin Scorsese can do with 3 hours. And they were specifically
Uh-huh.
talking when it comes to emotional depth of the characters. And
That makes
frankly,
sense.
it's true. I love Christopher Nolan movies. They're always a fun time. He is not that interested with emotional depth. And it's not a
Uh-huh.
bad thing
Hmm.
necessarily. He is very interested in plot. He's very
Hmm.
interested in form. He's very good at those things. Oppenheimer had a lot more emotional depth than, frankly, most of his movies.
Hmm.
And his movies still have it, but it is so much more rewarding in Killers of the Flower Moon and other Martin Scorsese movies. The richness you get, the knowledge you have of these characters and of
Hmm.
many characters, that it does call into question. And I think it just kind of weakened it for me. Also, frankly, seeing Godzilla minus one, the Japanese Godzilla movie that takes place after World War II,
Yes.
was a good reminder of like, yeah, he should have fucking shown Hiroshima. He should have shown what happened,
Yes.
because that movie, frankly, hit a lot harder to me emotionally because you do see the
Right.
devastation of this city trying to rebuild and then getting struck again. See, Oppenheimer was very good in a lot of ways, but those two things just kind of stuck out and lost points for me, not on keeping
Hmm.
points. But on to why was is so good.
Yes.
um, of course, we're talking about one of the masters, Martin Scorsese, who I don't think it's by any means wrong to say is probably the greatest living filmmaker.
Mm.
And he's not even my favorite. Like David Lynch
Yeah.
and Werner Herzog are still alive, but I do think it's true that Scorsese's the best. He
Mm.
is so great at what he does. He's good at doing a variety of things, and this is such a different movie for him. I mean, he's done long movies before. He's done these in-depth long things. This is a much more somber movie that
Hmm.
still has the kind of gallows humor you'd expect him to have a couple times to have some crimes going wrong. But the key thing here is the movie kind of completely stopped production and was rewritten to tell the story from the Osage tribe's perspective, to make it
Hmm.
about the dynamic. And for folks who don't know, this is a true story that happened of what's called the Ring of Terror, of a series of murders that happened for quite a while on the Osage tribe in Oklahoma when oil was discovered on their land. It's a horrifying story, and I do acknowledge that there have been some Native Americans who have said this movie's gratuitous to them and that it has Native American suffering.
Hmm.
They have a good point. Native American suffering is definitely part of this movie. This is also an incident that Oklahoma has laws on the books that are being proposed to ban books telling this story. So
Hmm.
there you have to tell this story the same reason you need
Yeah.
to tell stories about the Holocaust. People
Yes.
are denying that this happened. People don't want to hear that this happened. There's book burnings happening all over the country.
Hmm.
So it's very important that the story was told, and so it does need to tell what actually happened. But you have Native American rituals. You have the majority of the Native American cast is Osage.
Hmm.
They're speaking in Osage. They were consulted heavily. Lily Gladstone is by far the star of this movie. She's fantastic.
Hmm.
And she nearly quit acting before being offered this role. She was about to go back to school and got offered this incredible role. It is just beautiful, stunning. It has some really fascinating things to just say about America, how
Hmm.
genocide starts and how corrupt and greed is, and also true crime with the Indian kind of commentary on the kind of dangers of being entertained by it.
Uh-huh.
And you want to keep the story alive, but you also don't want to. There is a line that's gratuitous that I don't think it crossed. It was very conscious not to cross, but acknowledge that that exists in a very profound way. And I think I mentioned this earlier, but he was very open about being inspired with the pace in this movie from Ari Aster, specifically Midsummer and Beau's Afraid. And I thought that was also very cool for Scorsese, who's been directing since the 60s,
Hmm.
to still be keeping an open mind of learning something
Hmm.
from someone about a quarter of their age, you know,
Right.
and giving credit where credit's due. He's made many long movies, but he's still
Hmm.
learning, and that's great. But this is a story everyone needs to know. This is a story that many people did not know. I did not know what it was until I heard that this movie was being adapted, and everyone's incredible in it. You have all the, except Lily Gladstone's great. Seeing Robert De Niro and Leonardo DiCaprio in the Scorsese movie together, it's like the first time they've been on screen together since this boy's life in the early 90s, I believe. So that was really
Hmm.
profound to see. They're both incredible. Frankly, seeing Robert De Niro in a real movie, not a straight to video comedy or
Hmm.
a bad grandpa type of thing.
Yeah.
A great reminder of how good he is, but just a devastating, beautiful movie. Yeah, the movie is not sugarcoating what happened and how and why. Um,
Yes.
I thought it was great. So I think it definitely was my top film of the year. I think you're going to like it as well, Megan.
Yes.
Yeah,
I
just seeing
I
one Masters movie this late in the game that's this profound. It was great.
it's great to hear it. And I'm so glad you mentioned the care that went into the storyline of it. I think that was my like that was my very cynical take of
Mm,
being like, well, why is this, the whitest man in the world of Martin Scorsese getting
sure.
kind of like getting this story that is so
Right.
important, like you say. And but again, appreciate what you like brought to light too about like the care that was taken into this. And if anything, I rebuke what I said because um if anything, this will just open doors in an optimistic light. This will be opening
Right.
doors for Native American filmmakers and or storylines to be contenders in Hollywood. That's always, the goal. And I can be like cynical about it sometimes, but that it's such a triumph of a movie too is really nice to hear. So totally, on board with that. That will be my end goal, that like more Native American stories
Absolutely.
become a part of the dialogue. But excited to see this, and that it's I will always tout a potentially controversial story, a
Mhm.
American story that need to be told. So happy to see, really happy to see that.
I mean, it's not the focal point of it, but there is also a moment in the movie where they're watching a newsreel of what happened in Tulsa, the massacre of the black neighborhood,
Yes.
and
Hmm.
that ends up becoming a recurring focal point of the movie.
Hmm.
Of that's referenced as that's happening here. So yeah, it's a true history lesson, but it's also definitely a character study, and it's another disturbing family thing where like the Capra's character is someone who's just doesn't have a better option, just kind of does whatever his wealthy uncle is telling him to do,
Yeah.
which is you need to marry a Native American so we can get her land rights to oil.
Yeah.
And the movie,
Yeah.
like this happens the first like 5 minutes of the movie, you're not unaware of what's
Yeah.
happening.
Right.
But I think that movie does have a good challenge of does DiCaprio's character actually love her? Because he seems to do that despite still being a horrible person.
Yep.
It doesn't say like, oh, but maybe he was good. No, no, no. He's a horrible person. He can still be in love with
Hmm.
Lily Gladstone. Easy to do that, but it's a fascinating movie, and I thought it was very, very respectful to what had
Yes.
happened.
Yeah. I can't wait. I can't wait to
Yeah.
see it.
And actually, let's just give credit where it's due. DiCaprio was among the reasons production stopped.
I
He was the
did
one who
hear that.
suggested, I think we need to focus on that. So, while much is made of him dating young models, it's true. But I think
Hmm.
when kind of push comes to shove for this, he's on top of things like that. So I'm always happy to hear that. And he's a great actor. So,
His Oscar speech is one of my favorites because he kind of calls out
mm,
climate change in a really nice way and
wow.
honors Indigenous people in it. And it
Yeah.
was really it was kind of it kind of maybe, hokey or whatever. I liked it. I
Sure.
thought it was very sincere, so I was about it.
I think he does fund quite a lot of research like that
Hmm.
too, and preservation efforts. I think he does have his money where his mouth is for a lot of things. Is
Yes.
my
Yes.
understanding. Listeners, correct us if we're wrong.
I know.
What another great year of film watching, Megan,
I know. Oh my
and
gosh.
so glad to share it with you via this podcast. I have nothing on my radar. Time does not exist right now because we're kind of in limbo here when we're recording with the holidays. I have no idea what's coming out next year, so we're not even going to address it. But when we
Hmm.
do, we might do another movies we're looking forward to, like we did
Yeah,
earlier in
true.
2023.
That's right. We did one of those episodes in the summer of this year where I believe we
Yeah,
talked about, Barbenheimer, the hype then.
right.
So it's really nice
Yeah,
to kind of come full circle about it and talk about it.
yeah,
This is a very fun way to recap the year, definitely. So
absolutely.
always
Yeah.
enjoy doing this, Seth. And of course, we want to hear what everybody's top. Well, I love hearing if
Yes,
people have a
I
top.
do as
So
well. Yeah,
please throw it in the comments. Let us know. You can find all of our episodes from 2023 at our website at filmoptimist.com. All episodes and all of our social links are available there. So you can reach out to us that way. We want to know like your guys' favorite. That's kind of the the most fun part for us is to hear other people's
absolutely.
opinions. So let us know.
All right, folks, keep watching.